Hey everyone, it's Complex. Today I want to talk about war rights and why I believe it needs to change. I've been playing war rights for almost 5 years now, and there's no doubt it's the best historical Civil War shooter out there. However, I've noticed a pattern in gaming called the two-thirds rule. It's a concept I've developed after studying many games, and while others might have similar theories and ideas, here's how I see it. For a game to be both popular and successful over a long period of time, it needs to excel at two of the three aspects. To really break it down and show why it matters for war rights, let's compare other games and see how it holds up against the two-thirds rule. Let's dive in. So starting with rule 1, this rule is a simple one and it boils down to gameplay. Good gameplay, more specifically. For a game to be successful, it must deliver compelling gameplay that keeps players engaged and coming back for more. War Rights undeniably checks this box. It's stunningly realistic graphics, intense and immersive battles, dedicated to portraying historical Civil War experience. The game excels at creating this gameplay that draws players in. So rule 1, War Rights nails it. We don't gotta go into other games. You all know probably what good gameplay is. Now onto the scary part. Let's look at rule 2. Here's where War Rights doesn't do so good. Rule 2 says the game must have both interactive and changing objectives. Let's take a look at some examples. Hell Let Loose, for example, has 3 main game modes. Hell Let Loose uses an ever-changing selection of 17 maps that push the defending team back across multiple objectives. It works so well because every game is noticeably different. Now let's take a look at War Rights objectives, which I want to explain how they fail to reach those 2 marks. Although the developers have tried to remedy this by creating multiple game modes, the first being Skirmish, then Picket Patrol, Conquest, Contention, they still have unsuccessfully created a compelling objective. Let's look at the most popular game mode, Skirmish. Every single map, whether it's admitted or not, has a bias to it. Whether one side receives Buck and Ball, the best gun in the game, or one side receives the better positioning and better ticket ratio. Nearly every map has an objective bias winner. Let's take Cook's Countercharge, Hill's Counterattack, or Roulette Lane for the extreme examples. These maps have nearly a 90% win rate by CSA when both teams remain dedicated. For USA, let's take the obvious River Crossing or Piper Farm. This isn't to say that you cannot win as the other side. It just makes it impossibly challenging when they play exactly right. One last quick detail about skirmishing is the maps and objectives stay the same. In other words, it's stagnant objective. Games like Hell Let Loose, Battlefield, and Squad have nailed interactive objectives. I want to go without mentioning the other game modes, so I will quickly explain why the other 2 fail their mark. Before I do so, I want to mention I will be providing 5 key solutions afterwards to fix these problems. Not perfect by any means, but solutions nonetheless. Pig Patrol. Why does this game not receive players? Imagine you load into your first match of Picket Patrol, 15 minutes on the clock, and you follow your team of 150 soldiers to battle. Immediately you're shot and must watch your team of 149 players play for 14 minutes. That's no fun. Nobody likes that. The reason one life game modes work so well in other games is they are faster paced and usually you have control of your own life. What's unique about War Rights is no matter how well you play, Bucketball doesn't discriminate. All that to be said, people don't want to get one shot off in a 15-minute game mode. It will just never be fun. I have a single solution to this problem at the end, one catered to Picket Patrol. The other 2 game modes, Conquest and Contention, I lumped them together because they are the same. It's like running simulator. These game modes fail time and again because the majority of the game you're running across a massive map to get one shot off. These game modes fail specifically because they are again both bias and too much work. The bias part of the game modes come in when one considers that one of the objectives will always be closer to one team. And specifically, the CSA receives more Buck and Ball units than USA, giving them an advantage already. Enough of Rule 2, let's jump to Rule 3. Final rule. This rule is a take it or leave it. It can absolutely make or break a game. If you choose to break Rule 2, again, the basic premise is it's a two-thirds rule. You only need to follow 2 of 3 of the rules for a game to be both popular and successful. That keeps a large player count. That being said, get into Rule 3. Progression system. Yes, this rule can be seen among many popular games like Hell Let Loose, Battlefield, Call of Duty, CSGO, and many other games. It may seem obvious, but let me explain so we are on the same page. Progression systems give players the ability to work towards something, whether it be unlocking a class or gun that changes the game, or working towards a cosmetic for the game. Progression systems are important to keeping players coming back every day. Let's talk about War Right's progression system and why it fails this criteria. War Rights has tried and failed to implement a strong progression system. In early 2023, War Rights tried their hand at a veterancy system and gave players levels based on hours. Players can also receive XP by playing the game. However, why does this fail? The levels next to the name have no real meaning other than showing the experience level of players. It does not keep players engaged and want to continue playing. Although you have to level up to play certain classes, these classes are not game-changing, such as musicians and different ranks. This is why War Rights fails the progression system. Nobody wants to play to level up from 51 to 52. There's just no reason to right now. Right, you made it this far. It's solution time. I will be commandeering a few good solutions from active players in the community, but the rest are my own. I have 5 solutions that may solve War Right's problem of being unable to keep more than 1,000 players on daily. These 5 solutions will go from easiest to most complicated and change. The first solution I will mention is already being talked about by key developers, including TrustyJam, that being map editor. Yes, I know map editor does not fix the 2/3 rule that I mentioned. That's the reason it's first on my list. The reason I want to include it is simply because the developers did mention it and many players are anticipating its release. This will simply be more content for players. However, we do need to realize that it does not solve the 2/3 rule. So let's move on to solution 2. Solution 2 solves our progression system problem. I was thinking, how in a Civil War game do you get a real progression system? You can't really have classes. You can't really have custom guns. You can't have skins. It's complicated. But I realized that one thing you can have that all other games usually do have, that's player cards. And game profiles showcasing a player banner as well as some notable achievements and accomplishments. Most notably, Hearts of Iron 4 player card. Right now when you click a player profile, you get a few simple options. However, War Rights can fix this progression problem they have by adding player cards, where the more levels you get, the more you can customize this profile. Players could be able to advertise their own regiments here, showcase their top rare achievements, and open the door for awards. Awards could be given out like bronze, silver, and gold, such as sharpshooters, get 10, 100, 1,000 kills, melee expert, stab 10, 100,000 enemies, or flag savior, save this flag a certain number of times. Things like this could add to the game by allowing players to put themselves in certain situations or play the game more for special achievements and upgrading the player card. This opens the door for War Rights to do more hands-on in the game. Top players could receive shoutouts weekly and monthly in the main menu. Game developers could release special awards that are given by developers such as top player, or special monthly awards. They could release special awards that are given out by only developers such as top player, or special medals given out for participating in a yearly event, which is something else they can do. Yearly events like line battles, or such as a zombie event that they recently have done the past 2 years. That is just one solution to our progression problem. Let's move on to solution 3. These are the small changes that many players want to see. I'll keep it short and simple here. Change 1, allowing players to pick up fallen rifles and ammo. This would help remove the bias of Buck and Ball if teams without it could pick up the rifles. This changes everything. If we could just fix this Buck and Ball problem that we all know is a thing, where if you have Buck and Ball, you're probably going to win. If you don't, you don't. Officers could also steal other officers' pistol ammo, creating a more enhanced dynamic of survival. Other small changes include an enhanced melee system. We all know the melee is bad when you can stab someone behind you. An enhanced melee system would mean blocking or better stabbing. As of now, players can stab friendly players that are to their sides or even behind them. There's no doubt this needs fixed. I want to mention Battle Cry of Freedom, as they directly threaten to overtake War Rights and become the leader in Civil War shooters. However, we all know how that turned out. That doesn't mean we can't steal some of its, albeit small, ideas from them. Another change, this comes back to my Pick Patrol problem. Although I love Pick Patrol, it's great for small player bases. We did it in the Irish Volunteer Brigade. We had small weekly Pick Patrol events, and it worked out because you would only have 10 to 15 people alive at a time. That's instead of 150 people hiding in bushes and all around the map and having to wait that full 15 minutes if you die at the beginning. Enough of that. The solution to this Pick Patrol problem is simple. Allow flags to actually work. If we could allow flags to work, this would allow players who die immediately on accident or lucky shot to spawn in, and it would keep an incentive to keep the flag standing as long as possible and play differently than they play now. This would also allow larger regiments that don't particularly play Picket Patrol to play and be encouraged to play, because I know, like I said, many people in Picket Patrol, they die immediately, they don't want to play, and that's a lot of players. That's the Picket Patrol change. I have one final change that we could implement, and this is small. I'm not going to say anything else about it. I'm just going to mention it. Adding a pioneer role to remove fences and dig trenches and dirt mounds. This may change the way the game is played entirely for defenders, opening up new areas of defense and putting up defensive positions that were unthought of previously. I won't spend more time discussing it. It's just an idea. Let's move on to solution 4. This may be the greatest solution that War Rights has right now. This is the greatest change of them all, and we put an end to the developers missing their mark with the game modes by adding a brigade mode. Every single shooter has a variation of this mode because it works. To mention a few: Battlefield Operations mode, Hell Let Loose Offensive mode, Squads Invasion mode, Rising Storm 2's campaign uses it as well. Even Call to Arms Gates of Hell just released their version of this with Frontlines because it worked. Let me go into detail so nothing is left out. It is possible to make a bad brigade mode by making it biased and keeping attackers the same every time. However, this doesn't have to be bad. Stay with me. The suggestion in War Rights Discord has been largely popular and mentioned multiple times. I also want to mention the fact that the developers released the exact mode in 2024 Zombie Special Event. Let's go into depth of what this game mode is. There would be 4 to 8 points of contention around the map, possibly changing every game in succession. Let's take the map Rivertown, for example. That's Harper's Ferry. They used this in the Zombies mode of 2024 and 2023. In 2023, however, they had rotating objectives that followed no succession. Though it was a fun game mode in 2023 and 2024, 2024 nailed it when it came to the brigade mode. Whether the developers decide that the Union or CSA should attack from across the bridge starting at South Mountain or all the way at Boulevard Camp. Granted, these places are not pictured on this map in front. However, their maps are that large. We have seen that in 2024 Zombies. Here are some of the few contention points I have recommended for them on this map specifically. However, I would like to see it push all the way back to Boulevard Camp. Start by the assault across the bridges. This is the hardest by far assault you will do. Let's mention again that attackers should be swapped. We should not have CSA attacking every single time. It should be a 50-50 or allow the admins to decide which one attacks and which one defends for campaign purposes. Now, if CSA was attacking on this, show you an example of the points that would follow. And again, these are in succession, so you must cap the front point and go all the way back. Each group of circles I have here are possible flag capture points that could be located. In my opinion, it should be randomized. That would change every single game, just like a Hell Let Loose game. So for my first point I have here, the flag could either spawn on the left or right bridge, that's the pontoon or the railroad. Once CSA is successful in capturing the first point, Union will be forced to retreat to the next set of points that will be determined by the first point. It should be noted that the spawn points of Union should be the next capture point, so they can prepare and know where they are supposed to defend if they lose the first point. The CSA spawn should be the new capture point that they have captured. That way it's not a running simulator. USA defenders that choose not to retreat and choose to hold out if they lose a point should be penalized by dying out of line no matter if they are in line. They should also sacrifice the information benefits you get and not be able to be in formation if they'd failed to retreat on the first capture. Here's an example of how one match might look. You have 5 points in succession. CSA must capture each point going through the map of Rivertown. I do want to note I would like to see this expanded all the way to Boulevard Camp or back towards South Mountain. I would also like to mention once the attackers do capture the point, I would like to see defenders get a 1 to 2 minute time to recapture it in case it was a fluke, in case a couple of men got over that weren't supposed to. It would be cool to see a recapture time, but once that recapture time ends, the negatives go out and the Union team should be forced to retreat. And if they choose not to, they lose the benefits of being in formation. It should also be noted once the CSA does capture, it should be out of bounds for Union after the recapture time. If new players are trying to go into the old capture zone, it should be out of bounds. However, if the player was still there, they should be give a chance to retreat or hold their ground, as seen in Rising Storm 2's mode. Now let's mention how to not fail the mark on it. Both teams can change roles, being a 50-50 on who attacks and who defends, leaving nothing to chance. However, I do want to just quickly mention that admins should be able to change and decide who gets to attack and who defends if they so choose. Both teams can also have a single company of Bucking Ball every time. This will solve the bias issue we have going on in every single game mode with the Bucking Ball. This solves rule 2 of the stagnant objective if they play their cards right. I cannot be more clear in saying there is a way to screw the pooch here. If the developers decide that CSA is attacking every time, if they decide that 5 points stay the same and don't change, if they decide that random regiments should be played every time, there are numerous ways this game mode could fail. And if it's not done right, and if community guidance is ignored. That being said, it would dramatically change the game forever. War Rights is in a unique position here. They secured themselves as the only Civil War shooter after Beekoff failed to dethrone them. This allows War Rights the chance to be groundbreaking once again. They have room to make any bold claims or changes. The only thing is they have to do something. Being too scared to change is a bad thing. Any change is a good change because they have room for community guidance and can always walk back their bad updates if it ruins the game too much. They need to be unafraid of this. My final solution is a quick one, and I think it's the most complicated. Campaign mode. Mimicking Rising Storm 2's campaign mode, players get the chance to play the scale of the USA, or simply Antietam in the map packs that follow. Players can vote on the next maps, slowly push the other team back and forth. Many regiments in the game already do campaigns on Tabletop Simulator, so why not cater to them, the people who keep the game alive? Either by making an in-game campaign board that community leaders can save and play weekly with their 800 plus soldiers, or by making a public campaign mode where the public can vote on the maps and regiments sent into the battle. Either way, this change may be a welcome by the community. And that's my list. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think should be changed in War Rights, and if you like any of the changes I mentioned. Thank you for watching the video in its entirety. It's greatly appreciated. Until next time, see you on the field.